Thank you so much. Really appreciate this. Um, when I was 8 years old, my Peruvian and American family moved to Peru. And it was a really difficult time. It was a time of internal war. It was a time of hyperinflation. Price of goods would go up 100 times in one day. And many Peruvians were feeling incredibly disillusioned with our political system. They felt their leaders were corrupt, were not listening to them. They were sick of existing parties. And in 1990, Peruvians voted for an unknown politician, a man called Alberto Fujimori. And over the following years, Fujimori built a criminal system of total control of the government. Early on, he had his intelligence service engage in surveillance of the opposition. He ran secret death squads that massacred innocent civilians so that he could show results in the war. In 1992, Fujimori dissolved Congress and the courts, saying that they were corrupt, they were obstructing his agenda, and that we needed a new constitution. Many people supported him because it felt like he was bringing order to the chaos. But over time, it became increasingly clear that even under his new constitution, Fujimori was calling all the shots. When his new Supreme Court ruled that he couldn't run for a third term, he removed 3 of the justices and ran for president anyway. By the time I moved to the United States in 1997, I knew that Peru's government was in the hands of a criminal organization. It was exerting power based on a system of extortion and bribes. And it wasn't clear how the country was ever going to get out of it. Fujimori was an early example of what has become a common path to dictator-like power all over the world. They don't come into office through a military coup. They're democratically elected leaders who, through 1,000 small cuts, hollow out democracy from within. And today, as you've been hearing this morning, a very similar pattern is taking hold here. President Donald Trump was democratically elected, but from the moment he took office, he and his network have been dismantling independent institutions, from inspectors general offices to the Department of Justice, and intimidating the courts. They've been weakening our ability to hold free and fair elections. They've been attacking civil society and marginalized groups, including with forced disappearances. They've been exerting influence and control through fear and by effectively selling access to the presidency. Unchecked, the network now in power could fundamentally change the nature of the United States in the long term and entrench itself indefinitely. There's an urgent need to stop or limit this corrupt takeover. And many people in this room are working on precisely that. But when I look at this landscape, I also see a moment of tremendous opportunity. Because people are starting to reawaken to the importance of core American democratic ideals. You must be feeling and seeing this in your communities. These ideals are no longer something that you read about in history books. They're alive now that they're under assault in a way that they haven't been for a long time. And that's not a left versus right issue. It's an American issue. And that creates an opportunity for all of us together to build the kind of powerful pro-democracy and anti-corruption movement that we need to yield large-scale reform nationally, at the state level, at the local level. This would not be unprecedented. It's happened before. There have been moments, for example, after Watergate, where public disgust allowed major reform. And that's crucially important because the problems of democracy in the United States are not just about Trump. Like Peruvians who voted for Fujimori, Americans have for years been frustrated with our political system. Many Americans voted for Trump because they were seeking change. And in this moment of so much threat, we cannot just be calling for a return to the status quo as of January. As it was legalized corruption in the form of money in politics has meant that powerful interests have had far more sway in Washington than ordinary people. And our gerrymandered and uncompetitive election systems have made it hard for people to even make much of a difference in the ballot box. For many people, democracy simply hasn't delivered. So it's not surprising that in this context, many people have lost faith in democracy. If they think that this is what it's all about, why care? But it doesn't have to be this way. Many people in this room have been working for a long time to build a better democracy, whether by pursuing ranked choice voting and other structural reforms, fighting for voting rights, exploring forms of direct democratic deliberation, or seeking to remove the influence of money in politics. We all believe that US democracy can be more and can be better than it is, but we don't always work together. And so for this summit, we very deliberately brought as broad as possible a cross-section of our movement together, from both inside the Beltway and throughout the country, grassroots and grass tops, structural reformers, litigators, and everybody in between. Because now more than ever, we need to work across our differences. We need to push back, and we need to craft that better vision for what is possible that will bring others in and carry us through these dark times with power. So over the next 3 days, I encourage you, reach out to people you don't know. Have conversations about solutions. This is a time for outside-the-box thinking and new alliances. I've seen lots of cases of authoritarianism and corruption around the world. But I've also seen many brave, ordinary people, even in the worst and most challenging circumstances, persistently stand up for what is right. And that work makes all the difference. In Peru, the Fujimori government I grew up under eventually came to an end after videos surfaced of his intelligence chief giving piles of cash to the opposition. Big media owners, business people, judges, that's how they exerted power. The public had already been protesting, and it became unsustainable for Fujimori to stay, and he fled the country and resigned by fax from Japan. Wouldn't do that today, I guess, email. I was later involved in Fujimori's extradition from Chile to Peru to face trial. And I was there in the courtroom in 2009 when he was convicted of crimes against humanity and multiple corruption offenses. Peru then had a transition to democracy that opened up the doors to all sorts of reforms and that lasted for decades. And while the country is now having problems once again, the lessons that I take from all of that and from many other similar struggles around the world are twofold. First, change is always possible. Can't give up. And two, a government that is truly accountable to the people is something we need to work on all the time, every day. It's a struggle that's never over, but it is so worthwhile. If we do our jobs well, I believe we can generate a decisive rejection of corrupt authoritarianism in this country. And we can create the space for the flowering of a new, truly democratic culture. I'm so proud, I'm so excited to be here with all of you for the next 3 days, building with all these people committed to this cause. Let's get to work. Thank you.